If you're ready to chase a dream without instructions, buckle up. Welcome to Delicate Disasters.
Welcome to the first episode of Delicate Disasters. I'm Chiara Zucolato. Delicate Disasters is a space for the ones who are building a life that doesn't fit in a box. The creatives that are so tired of being underestimated, underpaid, undervalued, underappreciated. Shall I go on? For the ambitious women who know exactly what they want, but they still don't know how to get there. And whether you are just starting out or you are in your own deep, messy middle, this podcast is a love letter to your process, to who you were, to who you are today, to who you're going to be, to what you are going to create for yourself, to what you have survived. Delicate Disasters is a bit of a rebellion against the norm. And if that in itself resonates with you, then welcome. It is going to be a really fun time. To give you a little background about myself, I have been in the equestrian industry my entire life. Before I was a designer, a content creator, and before I had any sort of resume, I was riding horses. Honestly, that is still at the center of everything that I do. Every meaningful connection that I've made across fashion, content, design, and business has somehow been rooted in the equestrian industry. The equestrian community isn't just where I started, it's the foundation for how I see everything. It taught me structure, it taught me discipline, it taught me to be grounded and really hold true to the core values of life and what actually matters. A lot of times in this world, materialistic things do get in the way and we lose sight of the small moments that actually matter. And let me tell you, go be around horses and they will teach you everything you need to know about life. I also grew up in the world of entrepreneurship, small businesses, marketing. My dad owned his own company, and from a very young age, he started teaching me how to turn that creativity into a career. He is a numbers guy, let me tell you. Brilliant left brain thinker. He lives for spreadsheets. Well, I have always lived more for color palettes and concepts. We've worked together for years now, and let me tell you, in the beginning, it was hilarious. And still, we joke about it now, but trying to be a very young, creative, right brain thinker, going into business and working for a strong left brain thinker, it was something else, and it was quite difficult for both of us. And we've definitely settled into our roles now. He handles the math, the numbers, and I handle more of the creative side, the marketing, the manufacturing, all of that. I graduated high school very early, and I started a college degree online in communications, and I eventually transitioned into fashion. I actually overloaded my semesters with classes just to graduate early, and there were quite a few factors as to why I decided to do that, but one of the biggest ones and most stressful ones were the fact that my financial aid, there was something that happened in the government that year, and I'll tell the whole story later on, that shifted what kind of financial aid that I could receive. And I remember being pulled into the financial aid office, and they're like, okay, after this semester, the next semester, you have to start paying out of pocket. And I realized that I was going to have to drop out of school if I couldn't get everything done. So I basically overloaded my schedule, and I don't think I slept that entire quarter or those 2 quarters. It was basically a walking zombie. There was nothing glamorous about that quarter or those 2 quarters that I had to finish. I was in school and working full time. I don't even remember much of that time because I was so sleep deprived, but honestly, I wouldn't change it if I had to right now because it really made me resourceful and it made me be responsible and with my time, with my efforts, with my energy. It didn't allow me the time to make any stupid decisions, let's say. And it forced me to think like a businesswoman, even if I had never had a business before or been in any kind of corporate job outside of working for my father. But it really did make me approach school and work like I was in a corporate office having to finish at this deadline, and I needed to do it with a certain GPA and XYZ. I've always been extremely responsible, but this definitely made me grow up quickly. During this final semester crunch, I had my very last patterning class. For those of you who don't know much about fashion, there are two ways to create patterns. You can drape a pattern and you can do a paper pattern. I am full-blown drape the pattern type person. I can create anything you want from a drape, but the paper pattern was always something I struggled with. I still struggle with it today. It is not my strong suit, but I can drape it. And I remember I was in this final class. It was my final paper pattern class, and it was very difficult. I was so overtired. I could not grasp this assignment that we had. And I remember being up quite literally 16 hours the day before this class, trying to figure out this dress. And I did the best that I could, brought it to the class, and I approached the teacher when I arrived early, and I was like, I'm still so confused on how to do this. Hey, I know that I did it wrong. Could you please show me how to do it correctly one more time, one-on-one after class? And I am happy to redo it and even bring it back the same day. I can't understand how to do this closure. And I believe we were working on lining, and it was a thing. And she said nothing but, go sit down. So I just took that as, okay, fine. And after class began and everyone was accounted for, she goes, how did everyone do? Asked the question. We're, going to present XYZ. And when she did this, she called me out and she said, bring your dress up here. And I was instantly, that feeling where you feel like all the blood rush to your toes and you're like, my feet are hot and my brain is cold and I am just feeling tingly all over. And I was like, oh crap, this is not what I meant by trying to help me, but okay, maybe there's someone else in the class that needs help too. And I was the one that brought it up, so I get to be the guinea pig. I remember this professor looked at me and said, you are a disaster. You do not have what it takes to be a designer. No one will ever know your name. And that moment, it hurt. And I was in such shock that I couldn't even absorb what she said. It took me a second, which I'm sure only helped me not look super competent, but I was like, there's no way she just said this to me. Of course, once that initial shock wore off, it ignited something in me. I got pissed. We are all here and we're all trying to do our best, and I approached you for help, and this is what you're gonna do? It really made me dig my heels in, and I won't lie, in that moment, I was like, I'm going to prove you wrong. Not in a hateful way, but in a one day, I'm going to invite you front row to my fashion show at Paris Fashion Week. But even in that moment, when I was so pissed off, it set the groundwork for me as a designer that it doesn't matter what people think or what people say. I wasn't going to let it distract me from what I always knew was building inside me. And it really has been a driving force for me all of these years later. And of course, those emotions have evolved into a more mature approach. And now I actually use this as inspiration. Like, someone told me that I was a disaster and I was never going to make it. And I have done so many amazing things in my career. And I am so blessed that this is my story and that I have been able to achieve these kinds of things. But the moral of the story is not everyone is going to be in your corner. Even the people that are supposed to be teaching you, they might not be in your corner. They might not believe in you. And it is so important for you to believe in yourself. So after I graduated, which I did graduate, and I graduated with a very good GPA, I started my equestrian showcoat company. It's called Zucolato Designs, and it has evolved into many things now. And I had taken everything that I learned from being in the equestrian industry and applied the business techniques that I had learned from my father and pulling from my strengths in design, and created this business that was super niche, super boutique. Everyone said it was going to fail. It has had a lot of ups and downs in its time, but it was something that brought all of my worlds together, and I knew that it was the right path for me. And there was just something inside me that was like, just believe. And I am so excited to share more on the entire Zucolato design story and all the years that it's been in business and all of our adventures. So again, another episode. But in 2017, I went to Paris to study couture. My show show horse at the time had sustained an injury and was in rehab, and we weren't sure if she was going to be coming back. And I didn't want to just stay stagnant, and I really couldn't afford to have another horse at the time. I was kind of on a standstill, and so I went ahead and did this just to see if I could get in. It was a dream that I had had since I was a teenager, and it wasn't just about the fashion, it was about understanding the craft. I see couture as such an art form, and it's just really living history, in my opinion, with a world that has been so mass consumption, mass production, fast fashion. We've lost any sense of appreciation for what this true art form is, that I wanted to understand this, and I wanted to know it. I wanted a piece of that legacy to be with me always, and I wanted to not only understand the legacy and the art, but I wanted to understand the patience it took. Because let me tell you, it is not easy. It is not easy to be that patient with an idea. Now, it's not easy to be patient with work that you do, and especially meticulous work such as hand sewing and embroidery and all the things. But the patience with an idea, that was such a mental struggle, because you really had to battle what was happening that day with, needle and thread to what you wanted it to become, to what it was going to be. And it wasn't something that you were going to just get done in a day. I got to study the art of construction and the art of storytelling through a silhouette, and how every detail is so precise and so sacred. And it was truly an amazing experience, something that I have held on to and have been pursuing, because I don't just want to do couture because I want to make pretty dresses. I want to keep this legacy, this history, this trade alive. And I think it is so important, because when you look back historically at artists, and oh man, I could go in a whole rant about this. Even if you go back to Michelangelo and see what he did in his career and how that withstood history and stands today, our generations, I really fear, don't have anything like that. And I hope the pendulum swings back a bit to where we can start focusing on the quality and the art and the preservation of quality in history. But anyway, it was an experience that didn't just change how I design and how I go about thinking about design. It changed who I was, and I am so honored to have been able to do that. And I have a whole outline of talking about my time in Paris, and that is an episode that I can't wait to share with you guys. I started this podcast because I am a creative brain, and I know what it's like, and I know how hard it is when you do not see your version of success out there in the world. You don't have anything to compare to. It's all in your brain, and you're like, I see it. I see the life I want. I see the goals. I see what I can achieve, but there's no role model for that, or maybe someone hasn't done it exactly the way that you've done it. I am having a really hard time myself, and I have my entire career to find an accomplished equestrian who also studies couture and wants to become a legendary fashion designer and also loves doing social media. I have yet to find that mentor, but still there. So if you're out there, hey, hit me up. I would love to talk to you about this. But I want this to be a space for us to talk about the creative brain and celebrate the pivots in life that we do to achieve our goals, and to really remind each other that being quote unquote off track isn't always necessarily an accurate statement. Maybe that path is what's going to lead you to exactly where you need to be. And here's the thing, I've never had a corporate resume. I've worked odd jobs that didn't really make sense to anyone, but they led me to exactly where I needed to be. Every detour that we take in our lives, every detour that I've taken in my life, it became a connection and a story and a stepping stone. And I want to encourage you all who are listening to this, that if you're on a detour right now, do not think of it as a negative thing. See what it's going to bring you, and absorb every single moment you can, and try to make those connections and network and listen to your creativity. It will speak to you. It will direct you and bring you to where you're supposed to be. The equestrian world introduced me to so many people and corporations that would have just never happened in my life. I would have never even gotten in front of their manager or agency. And that wouldn't have happened if I didn't apply for these smaller, odd jobs. Right brain thinkers, creative people, we often are underestimated and we're seen as the emotional ones, the dreamers, and we're told it's a flaw or, that it's going to jeopardize our ability and leadership, you name it. But in reality, that's the fuel right there. We see connections that others miss, and we have to build new paths, not because we're defiant, but because the original path, it never fit or it didn't make sense to us, or no matter how hard we tried, we couldn't get the correct answer with this formula. But if we created this other formula, we still got the same answer. We still started and finished in the same area as everyone else, but we just had to take a little bit different of a path to get there. And the irony of all of this is the creative economy is worth over $2 trillion. And yet 61% of freelancers have been asked to work for free or for exposure. Can you believe that? And when I saw these numbers, it really resonated with me because I have been that creative person. The truth is, being a creative person does not give you the excuse or the right to be irresponsible with other people's time, money, deadlines. It doesn't give you that. But some of the most capable, visionary people that I know are right brain creatives who have had to fight back every step of the way to be taken seriously. People often ask me, how do you do it? How do you juggle horses, high fashion, clients, chaos, content creation, and still find time to be a human? And the truth is, I've been learning and I'm still learning how to do all of this. And there was a point in my life in my early 20s where I had to fake it till I made it. And the truth is, I didn't have a path to my dreams. I had to make one. I had to figure it out as I've gone along. This journey for me has been anything but linear. There have been zigzags, pivots, reinvention, recalibration. But the one thing that I refused to do was settle. I refused to settle for anything less than what I knew I was meant to do in this world. And I am still working towards that. Now, with that said, this has been a hard journey in life. And there are times where I really didn't want to get back up, or I really wanted to settle for that stable job or for whatever the situation was. But you have to look within yourself and see, are you going to be able to live with yourself for the rest of your life with that decision, or will you regret it? Now, there is no wrong answer here, and this space is not to say that you have to go one direction or the other, or this direction is correct and that direction is incorrect. That's not what this is. This is a place for me to share my story, my success, and even better, my failures, my path, and hopefully that can resonate with someone and maybe even help them. Your path doesn't need to make sense to anyone but you. Your creativity is not a liability, it's your leverage. And this podcast is here to remind you of that. So with that, thank you so much for hanging out with me today. This first episode was a little deeper than I expected, but I guess that's kind of the point of this community. And on our next episode, we're going to be diving into something big, and I'm going to have a guest here, and I'm so excited. And if any of this resonates with you, share it with a fellow creative. We are here to build this community and make it a space to not only encourage and inspire, but help one another. We are here to regain the beauty and the appreciation and respect the creative industry and the creative brains and the creative careers deserve. Remember your worth, and I am excited to talk to you next episode.